Push to support cannabis farmers with surplus product. Albany, New York. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisles are calling on Governor Kathy Hochul to sign a bill related to marijuana sales. Quote, I still have 500 pounds of last year's crop and I still have plans to harvest this year, unquote, said Jeanette Miller, co-founder and chair of Cannabis Farmers Alliance. New York State has only 23 licensed dispensaries, a big problem for cannabis growers who have more product than they can sell. Quote, there's literally hundreds of thousands of pounds of legal cannabis, said Miller, the only legal cannabis in New York State, just sitting around waiting for something to happen. There are 300 licensed farmers growing marijuana and only 23 dispensaries for them to sell to, explained Senator George Borrello, ranking member of the Agricultural Committee. So that has created a crisis. I've spoken to these farmers. They were at the most recent Office of Cannabis Management meeting and expressed their frustrations. Many of them have invested their entire life savings, and some of them are on the verge of bankruptcy. Borrello is among the lawmakers calling on the governor to sign a bipartisan bill that passed in both the state Senate and Assembly. It would allow farmers to sell tested, packaged, and sealed cannabis to a tribal nation dispensing facility for retail. There are literally hundreds of these dispensaries on native lands across the New York State. These are legally operating because they are sovereign nations, said Borrello. He said that this won't be a lifesaver for farmers. It will, however, be a lifeline. These farmers are hanging on by a thread. If the governor signs this bill, it would go into effect immediately. According to her office, she'll review the legislation. So let me kick off a little opinion about this. First of all, we have still not solved for the problem of taking cannabis from a sovereign nation into the United States. That is still crossing international boundaries. We talked about that on a previous High at 9 News. Secondly, I have a ton of compassion for these New York operators. And I'm also wondering why New York didn't understand that this was already a problem on the other side of the country and has been a big problem, and a lack of access to brick and mortar retail has been a choke point in the California regulated system for better part of half a decade. And so New York came into this regulated game feeling all full of itself that it had figured out all the kinks and was going to do it all better, and then stepped on the exact same landmines. 23 retail locations is not progress. It's a joke. The other thing that I think about is farmers. Y'all need to find yourselves a good extraction partner and create a shelf-stable product so that you can weather the storm, something that isn't going to oxidize. I feel really bad for these folks, and I am more sad, not for them, but for the fact that New York has continued to replicate policy missteps that, if they had just looked a little past their own boundaries or borders, probably could have anticipated were going to be problems. This is Yaro Kubrin, High at 9 News.
Yeah, New York is just all full of problems, and I don't see the governor reaching out to help out these farmers. I don't see it. I mean, she went into a dispensary. She didn't even buy anything, not even a T-shirt.
Dude, get over that. That was like a year ago.
Just saying. It's what happened. It's reality.
You Republicans always want to forget shit when you don't win. You want to bring up everything
What are you talking
like
about?
3, 4, 5 generations back about what the Democrats do, but when y'all do something messed up, or if y'all even say something wrong,
What
y'all
are
just
you
want to forget about it.
talking
What are you
about?
talking about, Rico?
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
You
That
are
Gretchen was going hard.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Stop the
Going
craziness.
hard for Kathy Hochul.
Stop it.
What?
You're
Number
going
one, she's a
hard for
Democrat.
her.
So
You're like,
suck it
oh,
up.
yo, I'm gonna do.
I
I
don't
think
care what you're
I have
talking
great
about.
faith in them.
My
They're gonna
point
do everything
is
right.
that.
Oh yeah, that's Gretchen.
doing
Gretchen was
50
doing. Gretchen was saying
opening
that.
every
That's
single
true.
month.
What was I saying?
Gretchen was
One more
saying that
time?
how you had great hope for Kathy Hochul, and you think everyone's doing such a great job over there and all of that. Yeah, you did.
Great
You did
hope.
that.
And frankly, for every
Mhm.
jagoff who thinks that the New York market was going to open up, flood the world with dispensaries and all this wonderful cannabis, are morons. That's not how a market opens up. It generally takes about 2 years to get this shit up and running. And even then, there's lots of hiccups. There's lawsuits. There's always problems. So everyone who thought this was going to be Narnia overnight, or I don't even know what the hell y'all thought it was going to be, you're fucking crazy.
I think
They aren't doing that bad.
Oh my God.
I think the implied promise that these newer regulated markets were going to learn from the
Wine and
missteps of
vape.
older, more maturing markets, and for justice-involved farmers or hemp farmers who were converting, who were told that they were going to do it better, right, and different, and then put their resources and time behind that.
That's
I
where they
can see
messed
how
up.
they would have thought that it was going to be a little bit better than it's been, or a lot better
You know,
than it's
you,
been.
you know how you know where they really messed up at
Well,
on this, Yarrow.
politicians.
You know where they really messed up on this, Yarrow, is when they allowed all the outdoor hemp farmers to be the only farmers and didn't allow for anyone to build out any type of indoor. So all they have is boof, boof, and more boof.
That's not where they screwed it up.
That
but
is.
You can pretend.
Can I
that
just bring
before is
some
like this.
information? The carbon footprint for an indoor grow of cannabis is 3,600 kilos CO2 per kilo of cannabis versus outdoor, it's only 2. That's
So
all I
Dr.
have to
Gene,
say about indoor
Dr. Gene
versus outdoor.
But
Savaran,
then let me tell you something. If that's the case,
that information is out of Colorado. It doesn't take into account LEDs. It doesn't take into account less HVAC. It doesn't take into account the transportation effect of agricultural workers going to agricultural locations. It doesn't take into account salt-based fertilizers. It doesn't take into account the land that is taken away from food production. It doesn't take into account the environmental impact of large-scale farming on habitats that are natural, such as the Emerald Triangle. So I'm going to tell you, I read those reports from those applied economic analyses from Colorado. They used an LA warehouse that was using old school 1,000 watt HPSs and traditional HVAC. And so we love to embrace sun-grown, and thank you, Flo Kana, for helping with the messaging, but that is not accurate science.
And not on that. I'll say this, Dr. Talleyrand, in response to that. I'll say if that's the case, then those carbons taste so good because outdoor greenhouse weed tastes like trash.
The other thing it doesn't take into account is the repurposing of old industrial buildings that are currently sitting vacant or decrepit, and where land use and urban sprawl and farming has sometimes a greater impact on Mother Nature than we do taking these old buildings that aren't being done and nothing's being done with them anyway.
Yep. And in regards with the environmental issues when it comes to cannabis, until the U.S. gets serious about enforcing environmental regulations on China and India and all of the other gross polluters across the world, anything that we do in the U.S. isn't going to mean anything.
Well, small farm can answer a lot of the concerns you have, Yara, because I understand that large grows are negative just by in itself for any kind of crop, right? So small farming, which the cannabis industry can lead in terms of small farms. But yeah, we've just got to understand that there are environmental impacts to doing it indoor.
I'm good. I'm comfortable with the environmental impacts because we need to have indoor weed because people.
We're gonna make a good outdoor for you, Jason. We're gonna make a good outdoor.
Good luck. Good luck. I hope so.